Hey everyone, this is Nikachu, and I am here to play some Merfolk in Legacy. But I'm not alone. I am here by satellite with none other than John Kassari. Hey, how you doing, John?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, this is the guy who is putting up 5-0 after 5-0 after 5-0 after 5-0 in the competitive leagues for Legacy, going up to Grand Prix Las Vegas. Also, how well did you do in Grand Prix Las Vegas?
I cashed. I went 12-3.
Oh,
So
that is fantastic in that enormous field.
yeah.
A field of like, I don't know, like
I also
three.
had a feature match at X&1.
Yeah, but you know what? Merfolk has very unlucky feature matches. Somehow, no matter how well the pilot is or how well they're doing,
I
they
actually
finally get to the
misplayed.
feature match and then they die.
Yeah. No, I actually misplayed. So, I mean, we can discuss that on another day. But
Well, we're going to get into more of that, but first let's thank our sponsor, the manabase.com. If you want to find out the best way to play Commander competitively, go check out James LePage's The Metalworker on the manabase.com. And I have a million new patrons. The last series was super long, and over time I accumulated a million new patrons. I thank so much to my patrons for supporting me. It helps the channel so much. It also motivates me to keep this going over and over and over again. So I would love to thank Wilson Wong, Peter Quebel. I'd like to thank Lachlan Hendy, Ellie Hines, Charlie Powell, Michael Bashir, Corey Chamblin, and Rafael Navarro. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. It helps the channel so much. So we're going to start this series off with some detailed deck tech. We're running the latest and greatest of John Kassari. He's, I mean, the thing that looks very unique to me is the sideboard. I have never had so many
yeah,
different cards in my sideboard, and that's just a different train of thought. We'll go into that.
yeah.
But, okay, so let's start off with 4 Cavern of Souls. There's no reason to go below 4.
Correct. Yeah. So the format of Legacy is generally you're playing against a blue deck that plays Brainstorm, right?
Right.
This is the idea of playing Legacy. It's just your
And
opponents are
Force
going
of
to play
Will.
Force of Wills. Yeah, every blue deck is going to have 4 Force of Wills for the most part. So you want to be able to cast your threats. I mean, think of it this way: if you want to have a deck that just cannot be countered, like all your creatures, like this card is very important. So.
That's right, but we're actually, are we not seeing a bit of a shift in the blue decks? We see these red stompy decks. Um,
Yeah, I mean those like all in red type of decks. They've always been around, like the Blood Moon decks. I assume you mean.
there have been Blood Moon decks, like Painter Moon decks, but like I mean, or sorry, I might be mixing up some archetypes, but I mean there's now this Dragon Stompy Trinosphere
Mhm.
deck. You know what I'm talking about? That runs like
Um.
Chandra.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some variants of that, but with like 8 Moon. Like the Magus of the Moon.
Right, right.
It's possible that, yeah, like the Painter Servant build. They do play like Pyroblast, so I mean, this also helps against that. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Okay, okay. I have seen. I saw one list, the most successful list in a Japanese Legacy GP. Surprisingly, they didn't play any Cavern of Souls, which blew my mind. Um, yeah, I have no comment on that. But I also am a huge fan of Cavern of Souls. It's very nice to comfortably. I mean, the most painful card to lose to is Days. I really hate losing to Days. Force
Yeah.
Will, at least they 2-for-1 themselves. Days feels backbreaking.
Yeah, also a side note with the Cavern in games 2 and 3, you bring in more wizards. So uh, keep in
That's
mind
true. We got
your
Venser here.
Curse
We got
Catcher.
Click.
Yeah, and then also it hits Curse Catcher and Silvergill,
Yes,
which are also wizards. So there's something to note. You don't always name Merfolk like
absolutely.
that.
Sometimes we have to name illusion.
Oh yeah, I've definitely done
We
that.
do what we have to do.
Yeah, and also another side note with that is when you name Merfolk, for example, and you have Chalice on one, you are able to cast your curse catchers, which are quote unquote dead.
Yeah, that's correct. And occasionally we'll have Chalice on too,
Yeah,
like against
exactly.
Reanimator or something.
Yes, I've definitely done that too. All right.
Okay, so moving on. Here's the spicy one. This is for months. We're talking
Uh-huh.
months. People had
Yeah.
asked me, we want to see Gemstone Caverns in action in Legacy, and I mean,
So good.
to be honest, your deck is what influenced me to try this in Modern.
Mhm.
Like, this card might be something. Well, if you're making it work in Legacy in a format with Wasteland, then this card has to be busted in
Yeah.
Modern. And I believe it is. It's a fantastic card. It lets us play our turn 2 spells on turn 1. So, what is your philosophy on our opponent wastelanding us?
All right.
Like,
Well,
how
let me
often
first
does that even happen?
explain the variance of this card. You know, the highs are high,
Yeah.
the lows are low. So yes, you have the main process about this card was I was looking for a card similar to like Lotus Petal being able to like jam a Chalice on turn two because
Okay.
that's like super ideal in what you want to do with this deck. And then I was also thinking about like Chrome Mox. Um, However, those two cards, you know, they are super situational. Whereas Gemstone Cavern, I mean, you having a colorless land, like
And this is
it
uncounterable.
doesn't
This is an
really affect you too
uncounterable.
bad.
Like, this is an
Yes,
uncounterable effect, not opposed to Lotus
that
Petal
too.
and the that
Chrome
other
Mox, yeah,
artifact I can't remember.
yeah, Chrome Mox.
Chromox.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was my thought process. How can I play a Chalice turn one? You know,
Yeah.
Chalice on one on turn one, and this is what I ended up coming up with. And I had to test it out. I had great results with it. And yes, the highs are high, the lows are low. But you also, and people don't really understand this, but if your hand relies on, you know, this just being a colorless land, you don't want to like mulligan, you know, quote unquote mulligan with it.
Hmm.
You don't have to. Like, let's say you just get wrecked by a wasteland, but let's say your hand is like cavern, gemstone cavern, and like a bunch of other things.
Right.
You can choose not to use this effect.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
You don't have to, but
Yeah.
generally
No
you
one's
do
putting a
want
gun
to
to your head.
Right. It could just be a land, a colorless land. But, I mean, generally you would just use it because most of the cards that I remove with it is either like Aether Vial or Curse Catcher because you're skipping your turn one.
Yes.
So, and if you're like land heavy, you can just remove a land. So, I mean, I've tested this card enough, and I've been able to cast, you know, my turn two spells on turn one, and the idea of this deck philosophically is a tempo deck. So if you have, you know, if you're on the play, and being in Legacy, being on the play is huge. So you're
Yes.
stealing turn
Absolutely.
one. So that's like the main, you know, prize for playing this card.
Where do you think this really, really matters? Because you know what, like, also on the idea of the play,
Mhm.
or also on the concept of card disadvantage, there's a lot of matchups where we might die with a lot of cards in our hands, so the card disadvantage doesn't matter a whole lot in a lot of matchups.
Yeah,
Like, for
and
example, a Reanimator, we really need to get our game going immediately against them, and it's worth. Well, that Reanimator is maybe not a very good example because they don't run Wasteland.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, this deck, as you as you can see, is not much of a card advantage type of deck. We have very few ways to, you know, loot. We have very few ways to draw cards. You know, Silvergill Adept and Smuggler's Copter are the cards that kind of help us
Right.
in, like, they supplement. You
Well,
know,
this
but
used
they're
to be
not.
card advantage.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not what it used to be,
it's
but
a
it's still we still have to play
yeah,
it. We'll get
it's a
into that
soft
later.
lock. Yeah, it's a soft lock card, and against certain decks, it's a hard lock. But yeah, totally forgot to mention or respond to the Wasteland question.
Hmm.
Yes, I have gotten Wastelanded several times. You know, when I played this turn one, and yes, you do get 2-for-1, but I've also won those games too. So it's not just like you straight up lose the game on the
Well,
spot.
I guess
you
what it
know?
comes down to is you still earn the play at the cost of a card.
Sure. Yeah, it's like mulliganing.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
yeah,
not even that. Maybe not even that. Okay, so or is it? Hold on. Maybe not even that because you're
you
still at
still
card parity. You're still stealing the play.
yeah.
You mulligan, but also your opponent mulliganed
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
because they're not
It
drawing a
is-
card.
Yeah, they also lose tempo out
Yeah.
of that.
If
So
if
I mean, it's not free. It's not like, oh, you have Wasteland, you just win the game. No, it's not like that at all.
No, so you're actually, even in the face of Wasteland, you still steal the play,
Mhm.
and at no advantage to your opponent. And the only concern I would have is Merfolk a better deck with fewer cards in their hand than a random deck like a Delver deck,
Mhm.
which I don't know, maybe it's situational.
It's very situational. And that's why I love Legacy.
Running A11 lands. Do you have any?
Basics are the best.
Just out of
If you can play
curiosity,
basics, huh?
did you try to play any more than one of these?
No, it's a legendary land. So I mean, I couldn't see myself ever playing more than one.
Because I have played budget versions of Merfolk where I didn't play Ether Vial because Gemstone
Uh-huh.
Caverns at one point was just like $1 or less.
Okay. So you tried more?
Yeah, I tried 3 and it worked perfectly. Well, it worked well without Ether Vial because you're not flooding out on these things.
Sure.
Like, and you're running like 23 lands, so it was very easy to sacrifice the Gemstone Caverns if you had to, just to cast things. It was not that big of a deal. Anyway, it felt playable in a certain light, so I was just curious if you tried any more.
Yeah, no, I haven't. It didn't make sense for me at the time, so.
Yeah, I get it. We're pretty we want them basic lands. I'm a
Oh
little
my
nervous
God.
at
I am
11, to be
so-
honest.
Yeah,
You know,
really?
I feel like 12 is like really pushing it for me.
Okay.
But but if we look at the sideboard, and I don't mind the sideboard, you don't need to play any of your blue spells on turn 1, or even maybe turn 2.
Right.
So having less of these blue sources is not a big deal because you can take some time to draw into them, and then still get the value out of Flusterstorm or stuff like that. Whereas in like Modern, if you have Spell Pierce in your sideboard, you have to be using this card very early on in the game. It's sort of it's half its purpose against a lot of decks, and having at least 13 blue sources is sort of important. And if you have less than that, then you're going to struggle having a blue source on turns 1 and 2. And you have 11 here.
Well, okay, so, I mean, in my eyes, Cavern is also a blue source for most of these cards. Because most of our double blue cards that we will be dropping on turn 2, you know, you just want to play a Cavern on the second land.
Right.
And yeah, so working with this deck, to play around Wasteland, you really need to hold your Cavern of Souls to cast your turn 3 True Name.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like super important.
You just sandbag that thing.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, having 2 basic islands in play is what you need for most of the game. You know what I mean? So, but I get what you're saying. You normally want more basics if you can.
Well,
but,
I mean, your sideboard accommodates this mana base pretty well. Like
that makes sense.
Yeah, like what I'm looking at. You're not playing with Swan Song. You're not playing with what do I want to say? You're playing with one Echoing Truth. I don't know how important Echoing Truth is to be played very early on, but you don't have really anything that you really want to jam on turn 1 or 2. Maybe sometimes Flusterstorm, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, Flusterstorm, I mostly only bring in against like the Storm decks / combo decks that this is important against
Right,
or
right.
counter wars and yeah.
So Island, very important. Gets around Blood Moon, gets around
Yes,
Wasteland.
definitely.
And there are a decent chunk of Blood Moon's decks now. Like, I run into that Dragon
Oh.
Stomp. I like to call it Red Hate Wins, but it's like official internet name is Dragon Stompy.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that before.
And I've had mixed results against that deck.
I rarely lose to it. I've lost to the Painter Servant version a number of times, but the other version, no,
Well, I'd
not
love
as
to
much.
see what you have to say about that thing if we run into it. I did
Yeah,
uh, rightfully lose to it at GP Vegas. I like ran
yeah,
right into a volcanic fallout, and I lost the game when
yeah,
my opponent
yeah.
was at
That's
one
some.
life.
Oh,
I
jeez.
just totally forgot this card existed. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's the part of the skill
volcanic island. Yes.
of Magic. You have to know all the cards in your opponent's deck.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, it's so important. Practice so much. Like before I went to the GP, I've easily played 300 plus games with it.
I don't think I went that high. I I think I had, oh man, probably under 100,
Yeah,
but more than 80. Not as much as I wanted to, and not exactly high quality either, because I was trying builds without Chalice of the Void, and they like just didn't work at
oof.
all. I was like, I'm not really getting the results I want. Okay, let's play without Chalice of the Void. Okay, I'm getting even worse results than that. So okay, let's bring Chalice back. Just
Yeah,
as a,
when we get to Chalice, I'll explain it, how important that card is.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
All right, so let's Mutavault.
Mutable. So I was trying three for a long time, and then I realized that's wrong.
There's a lot
Uh,
of, but there have been a lot of variations actually in the mana base for Merfolk. I've seen
okay.
over the last few years people try out three Mutavaults, two Wastelands, playing
Hmm.
21 lands.
Yep.
I've seen like two Mutavaults, three Wastelands. I've seen like three Cavernous Souls, three Wastelands, three Mutavault. So,
Hmm.
so why is Mutavault so important? We have to jam for them.
So the way this deck works is sometimes you're trading one for ones. You're getting your Merfolk Lords bolted.
Yeah,
You know, there's a lot of clearing the board. So you need to be able to turn the switch and attack back. The way that Mutavault and the Lord works is it's 3 damage.
yes,
so,
it is quite the combo we
so,
have here.
and even if they clear the board, you're not mad. So, and also it works with image, which is a very like
Yep, we can copy.
cool
Yep.
interaction that works. You can activate your Mutavault, copy your Mutavault. Your image turns into a Mutavault. Being
An
able,
unanimated Mutavault. A
yeah,
lot of people are very
yeah.
confused about this. It is unanimated, but if anything targets that land, animated or not animated, that Mutavault blows up.
Yeah, they sacrifice it. But anyways, so Mutavault is just a really key component to this deck because it allows you to pressure your opponent instantaneously, basically. So 4 of.
Four
I've
of.
tried 3 of. I highly recommend 4.
Did
And
you try Wasteland at all?
I thought about it, and because my theory of this deck is tempo oriented, I don't want to go back on my tempo if I don't need to. I do understand in some matchups, especially like Dark Depths, Wasteland can be a huge help. However, I think generally you don't want to skip playing a land. You want to make sure you get to 3 mana so that you can cast your True Name. True Name is so key to
Yeah.
this deck being successful, basically. But um, if you're playing like 2 Wastelands, I feel like it's kind of not enough. Like you have to design and have like a game plan of what you want to do in each matchup. And in all the matchups that I've tested, I have never been like, oh, I really wish this was a Wasteland. In most situations, I'm like, I hope I draw like this card. And like, I don't know. Yes and no. Like I would rather have so like 4 Mutavaults is like what I love.
Yeah.
4 Caverns is what I love, and I like to have a lot of basic lands in this format.
And you love your gemstone caverns.
And then I love that gemstone cavern spice. So no room for Wasteland. I mean, I'm not going to say you cannot outright cannot test with Wasteland, because I've seen people play it, and I've heard of successful stories, like especially Tuxdev. He's like, yeah, if I didn't have Wasteland, I would have never been able to destroy or disrupt the Dark Depths combo.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, generally that's not how we're winning that matchup anyway. It's
Also,
kind of like a lucky situation.
I don't like how they can play like Pithing Needle or something. They play Pithing Needle, correct?
They do? Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, and they almost always name Wasteland.
Yeah, we're talking about the lands deck specifically. There's two different ones. There's
Correctly,
like a black
yeah.
green
There's a Vampire Hexmage version. And
yeah, that's the black green one, and then the other one is the lands, red green.
The lands,
version.
all lands. So yeah, Mutavault, super important. Wasteland. I mean, I've played Wasteland myself. I just find it's fine as a utility card. I never found it super high impact. I had the exact same conclusion as you. We really want to play our True Name Nemesis on curve, and we don't want to waste time on that. Although I didn't experiment it fully, but there are certain scenarios where, for example, I don't know how many decks are vulnerable to this, but let's talk about like Rug Delver, for example, just in theory. Or Bug Delver, the old Bug Delver, when they had a mana base of 3 Underground Sea and 3 Tropical Island.
Mm-hmm.
If you let them play out their lands up to 3, and then they stop playing lands, one of those lands will be sensitive. Like if they'll play like Underground Sea, Tropical Island, Underground Sea, now all of a sudden the green is no good. I mean, if you wait for them to play out their land, there will come a situation where they might get a sensitive land. But unfortunately, like they've probably played out most of their hand, and the Wasteland's impact is not super high impact at that point in the game.
Yes. So like, the thing is, in like deck building in general, if I'm trying to do a land denial deck, I would try to focus more on that and say, all right, let's play 4 Wastelands, 4 Stifles, have more land interaction, like cutting their mana off. The thing is, just playing 2 Wastelands, like, I get it, but we don't have any way to manipulate our deck to like draw into that for those certain matchups. We're not playing a brainstorm.
We will.
We're not a brainstorm deck.
We're not a brainstorm deck.
Yeah, and there's no way we can card select, like being able to draw 3 cards and, put 2 back and then fetch. Like, we're not doing that with this deck. We're basically playing off the top of our deck. And, if we're only playing 2 Wastelands, I keep saying this, it's not part of our game plan. It's not important to our game plan. We want to make sure we can hit our land drops and play all of our cards efficiently. I just don't think having another colorless land that doesn't really assist our game plan, like, it's not consistent enough.
Okay.
Is my point. And yes, I see your situation where you're like, okay, so I'm playing against a Delver deck, we can cut them off a land, but we don't need to do that to win our games.
It's actually even harder to do that now because all the Delver decks are playing Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, and I was about to say that as well. They normally lead with turn 1 Deathrite.
There was once upon a time there were Delver decks without Deathrite Shaman. Now they're just Deathrite Shaman decks.
Every Delver deck I see is like playing Deathrite.
It's Grixis or Bug.
Yeah. So
Grixis or Sultai, I should say. That's funny how there are some names to color combinations that are just not picking up. We use Esper, but we don't use Azorius.
That's true.
We don't use Izzet. That just didn't catch on.
Yeah.
Abzan caught on. But Sultai didn't. Whatever. Okay, moving on. Aether Vial.
That card.
Of course, this is a great card. I don't know about you, but I started shaving 1 Aether Vial in so many matchups that I started considering splitting it 3 to 1 in between my main deck and my sideboard. I never really went ahead with this playtesting because I sort of felt like it very late in my testing for GP Legacy. Sorry, GP Vegas. And I really haven't revisited Legacy much since then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I haven't tested too much after the Legacy GP because once again, I'm that type of player that will grind right before the tournament, and then after that, I have no need to.
Yeah.
But I kind of did with this deck
Hmm.
because I just had fun with it. I had so much fun. But I was with you. I tried cutting down to three. I realized how important it is to have four. Being on the play this turn one is just so insane, and it allows you to throw out all of your Merfolk early. But most importantly, the downside of Aether Vial is really what makes this deck um, too clunky at some points. Like, because if you
Sure.
play one of these, you're like, oh, I don't want another one, and then you look at your hand, you have two in your hand, and that I lost so many games where it was just like, why can't I get this out of my hand? Like this,
Where's
like
my
it's so
brainstorm?
important. Yeah, exactly. I need to get rid of this card, and that's essentially what I was looking for in Smuggler's Copter. Uh, Once I started playing that card, I was able to filter through my deck and discard my extra Aether Vials. And I no longer lost those games where it became an attrition, where you need to draw into something that matters.
Right, right,
So
right.
filtering your lands out for real cards, filtering out your Aether Vials, your extra chalices. Like, Smuggler's Copter changed the game for this deck because you had no way to do it before. And I was actually considering just straight up Merfolk Looter because
Right, right, yeah.
yes, you
You could
need
cast them,
a
well,
way.
you can cast them off
The
Cavernous
yeah
Souls, but you can also cast Smuggler's Copter off of Cavernous Souls.
so um, it's super important to have four of in this deck because playing it turn one is too godlike in my opinion.
Out of
But
curiosity, did you ever try Merfolk Looter?
no, I wanted to, but Smuggler's Copter was just so much better.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, it attacks and lose at the same time.
And it doesn't die straight up when it comes into play, which
That's
was
true,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aether Vial, just too important. We're going to run four.
Hmm.
Nothing unusual there. Curse Catcher.
Oh, and in Legacy, this card is so great. I can't not play four of a Curse Catcher. I mean, I do side him out against decks that don't play spells,
Right.
instants or sorceries. I mean, but
Do you take him out? Well, I don't know what the sideboarding plan is going to be with this, but how much do you like him against Death and Taxes?
I take him out completely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree the same.
I mean, this is like all creature deck. Yeah.
I feel like this is. I mean, Curse Catcher is definitely one of the better cards for us in Legacy. There's a lot of decks that are trying to be really greedy and do things very quickly. There's
He
also a lot of
shines in
decks that actually
Storm.
just completely ignore him.
Yeah.
It's mostly
Yeah,
those
like
like little
all
fringe
like
decks,
any
I guess.
creature deck.
Hmm?
Any creature decks, this guy's bad.
Yeah.
So like Eldrazi, Elves, like you said, Death and Taxes, any creature deck, you don't want to see this guy in your hand. You and especially yeah. I mean he's good. He's actually like not the cool thing about Curse Catcher is if you don't have a turn one and you just have him and then you go Lord, like you're still doing quote unquote, merfolk in him.
Yeah, you still got to Merfolk him. It still enables turn 4 wins.
Yeah, yeah. He's not. He has more upside though in Legacy. I would say that.
Right. Okay, so Smuggler's Copter, the game changer.
Yep.
Slight game changer in Modern, too. Like, I just said, to hell with it, let's try... Like, I saw the value in Copter in Legacy. I did. I really did.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea in Legacy. There was not nearly as much artifact hate. I saw it living a lot more often. There's just a lot... I feel like, in general, I want to say a lot less removal, more combo decks.
Mhm.
And also it helps certain matchups like Death and Taxes a lot.
Sure.
Uh, and also because there are so many Delvers, it also gives you a great blocker against those decks, or potentially.
Yep.
So there is so much upside to this that I thought, you know what, to hell with it, let's just try it in Modern. And since then, there have been a multitude of Modern decks running Copter. And I think it's just a fantastic card in Legacy. I could not see myself not playing with this card in Legacy. Did you fiddle around with the numbers? Did you try with
Yes.
3, with 4?
I tried 4. The thing is, this card is super great, but if you draw too many of them, you're just looting your smuggler copters.
Then loot the smuggler's copters away.
That's fine, but like 2 has been the greatest number that I came up with.
Okay.
In my testing. So I've tried 3 for the longest. I was happy with it, and then I'm just like, dude, I'm drawing way too many smugglers copters.
Way too many vials, way too many smugglers copters.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm already dumping these things to my smugglers copters.
And the chalices too.
And these.
So, yeah.
Is it possible then that we should have more smugglers copters in the sideboard for the matchups where we want it, like Death and Taxes? We're going to take out our Chalice of the Voids. I
have. So Death and Taxes. I can discuss that matchup if you want right now.
Sure, yeah, we can go on. This is a whole discussion video.
Sure. Okay, so in that matchup, the card we do not want to see from our opponent is Stoneforge, because Stoneforge will grab Sword of Fire and Ice, and that is anti-our deck.
Yep.
So we have ways to chump block it for a turn.
Univault, Smuggler's Copter. Here.
Yes. However, the way so like game 1, it's kind of a race because we don't have any interaction against that card. Mm-hmm. They just straight roll us. So true name race is normally how we win that game.
Gotcha.
Unless they just don't have the Stoneforge or the Sword of Fire and Ice, and then we can just Merfolk them.
Mm-hmm.
Games 2 and 3, we actually have a solid plan. So this is a new addition, the Grip, which is at the top right.
Yeah, the Grip of Piracies. Yeah. If you guys don't know what this is, 1 blue, 2 colorless. It's an instant, by the way. Gain control of target equipment, then create a 0/0 black germ creature token and attach that equipment to it. So
I have not tested this card, but I guarantee you it's very good in this matchup. Mostly what I've been doing was the Manriki Kassari at the bottom left. So the way this card works...
Yeah, I love this card too.
Yeah, so against Stoneforge, we have 4 Phantasmal Images.
Mm-hmm.
So we just copy their Stoneforge and search for our own Manriki Kassari, and basically just hold the fort down, and we say you can't play any equipment, and that's how we deal with that Sword of Fire and Ice.
You know what's funny? I was never afraid of Stoneforge Mystic decks until I don't know when they start jamming Sword of Fire and Ice. But the moment they started playing that, then it was hard.
They always do it now. So
yeah, they always do it now. Before it was just like Batterskull, Umezawa's Jita. I have no idea when they made that addition.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know that matchup, True Name doesn't care about Umezawa's Jita or the Batterskull.
Yeah.
The only thing we really care about is the sword, because it gets through our True Name.
Not only that, it just races us. I've been tempoed out by that card so many times.
Oh yeah.
They put it on anything, like even the Stoneforge Mystic. Well, yeah, they could put on
Mirren Crusader.
They could put it on that, but like even if they put on like Stoneforge Mystic herself, she hits us for 5 damage and draws a card. I can't race that.
Yeah,
I just can't race that.
Yeah, so that matchup, I mean, those are 2 very key cards on how we interact with Sword of Fire and Ice. But yeah, back to Smuggler's Copter. It's freaking great in this deck because you really end up with a hand that, like, let's say Chalice is just a dead card in the matchup. You just loot it away, or if you have too many Aether Vials, you already played 1 or 2. You don't want any more, you loot it away. If you have too many lands, loot it away. And you want to draw into your action. So
Right. Are there any particular matchups you think this card is incredibly good?
Smuggler's Copter?
Yeah. Or is it just like so card against everything?
Yeah. So I actually forgot to mention, and it's along the same lines of Mutavault, the Terminus deck, the Miracles, New Miracles.
The New Miracles.
Oh my gosh, Smuggler's Copter and Mutavol are so key in that matchup because
hmm
when they terminus your board, you still have like,
A
for
board.
example, if you had Smuggler's Copter and Mutavol in play,
hmm
and then also Aether Vial, like all these are like super key components to beating that deck.
Right.
When they clear the board, you're like, okay, I'll still be able to pressure your Planeswalker, your Jace the Mind Sculptor, or your Life Total. Um, I'm kind of going all over the place,
No, it's
but
okay. It's all good.
it's also very good against Planeswalkers, Smuggler's Copter. A real problematic card for this deck is also Liliana, believe it or not. So you're
Oh,
able
well,
to
in
attack
modern,
your
Liliana has been the bane of Merfolk for years.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So this hits her. You know, it's a great, it's an all around great card. Just because even in games 2 and 3, you almost never want to side this card out because it'll help you dig for those sideboard cards.
Right.
You
But
know?
what,
That's the problem with this deck.
against the Liliana decks, how many of them are running Kolaghan's Command?
The Lilian. There's a few. There is a few. It's like a 4-color legacy deck that has Snapcaster and
Yeah,
Kolaghan's
it's
Command.
basically like Deathrite Shaman Control.
Yeah, yeah. That matchup is pretty tough.
I ran
I
into that
normally-
matchup a lot in my preparation for Vegas.
Yeah,
But I feel
did
like I
too.
ran into the exact same guy over and over and over again.
I also felt that way, and it is such a tough matchup because they're basically a control deck. And with that said, I actually side out chalices and just try to merfolk them. That's how I've been beating that deck.
I mean, it's totally reasonable because they have almost no 1-drops.
I mean, they do have a lot of 1-drops, but they're just not important 1-drops. That's the point. So,
Yep.
Kolaghan's Command is just gonna get through it. I have beaten them with Chalice on 1 and 2, and like just merfolk them.
Seems ambitious. Well, I mean, the 1-on-2 is very useful because
No, those were game ones, is what I meant to say.
okay.
So like game 2 and 3, I side them out because it's just not good enough. Yeah.
We're gonna merfolk them. Just
Yep.
like how they junned them out, we're gonna merfolk
Yeah.
them.
Exactly. I mean, that's the beauty of this deck, really. You can just swing out and just get wins, and you're just like, cool,
Right.
that was fun.
Okay, moving on. Echoing Truth. This is a card.
All right,
Like
so-
I'm not super in love with Echoing Truth, but I always find it's sort of it's just a mandatory card to have in the deck. Like, you know, it can interact with Dark Depths decks.
Yeah.
Can save our
So-
creatures. It has. It always has some application that's important.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
of course,
so
it gets around Chalice on 1.
Yeah. That's really important too. But Tuxdev kind of made me play this as a one of in the main because it's our safety blanket, is what he calls it, against Ensnaring Bridge. Ensnaring Bridge is the card that we straight up game 1 can never deal with, and that goes along with what you were talking about with the mono red deck, with the Chalice. I think they play Chalice. Anyways,
They play
so they go, like-
everything. They play all the
Yeah,
hate.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so
all
they
the hate.
essentially- they empty their hand, and then they play Ensnaring Bridge. We just lose, and then they're like, okay, top deck Chandra, top deck this, and just like
anything.
they just dump their hand. And Echoing Truth is how we beat them game 1. It's our safety blanket. It's not terrible against Sword of Fire
I don't
and
think
Ice.
this is our safety blanket. No,
Yeah, but
it may not always work because if they
we
play
don't know.
Trinisphere.
Like if it's something resolves, Echoing Truth is just gonna be our safety blanket, and
Okay.
it also is good against the token, right? The 2020 Dark Depths token. There's a lot of good interactions with Echoing Truth. You can also bounce your own true name, and you can to bounce theirs. It's an interesting interaction where you can
bounce all the
kind of-
true names.
you can bounce your own Silvergills.
Oh yeah, you
empty
can
the
reset
Warren
those things.
tokens. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great, but in the matchups that it's necessary in, you want it.
Right.
So,
Just out of curiosity, because I know you were running a one of Days for a very long time.
Right.
Is this taking the days slot?
No. Vendilion Click actually took that. So I was playing Daze for a long time
Yeah.
as a one of because it has so high impact when it hits,
Mm-hmm.
but it also is really bad when it doesn't.
Sure.
So uh, my theory goes back to the way that this deck is built, and it's a tempo deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily always want to. I like it's 50-50 with me in Daze because there are games where I'm like, dude, if I didn't Daze there, I would just played my true name.
Right.
And I get mad at myself for dazing. And like it's a perfectly good timing. Like for example, I would have countered like for example a Stoneforge on
Right.
turn 2. But that also means like I'm not playing my true name on time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's partly why I got rid of Daze. I've sided in Vendilion Click nearly every matchup.
Yeah, I hear you. I've had main deck Vendilion Click before. It's just a very, very good card.
Yes.
But I like Click a little bit more when the format is a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Definitely.
I've had 6 3-drops and it actually has felt clunky. I have definitely felt the clunkiness of Venser. And I do love that card, but there are times where, oh my god, this Venser is hard to cast.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if most of your viewers are playing Modern, understand that Legacy is very similar to Modern in the sense that there are a lot of different decks that you can play against.
Yep.
So learning the format is huge. Understanding what you're playing against in the first couple turns, it changes the whole dynamic of how you play your cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to study the format before you jump into Legacy is my advice.
But I wanted to talk about some upsides to how you were playing Daze as a one of, because I really like the one of idea.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I don't know how you came to playing it as a one of, but there was another Legacy Merfolk player that was playing it as a one of, and he said, and I agree, that you don't want too many Dazes, but if you ever play a Daze anywhere in your match, if you happen to draw it, your opponent is going to play around it. They're going to overplay around it. They're going to assume you have like 2 or 3 in your deck, and they're constantly going to be playing one turn behind, trying to play around your Daze constantly, when you only had 1 in your deck in the first place, and the guy said that he was siding it out in every matchup anyway, so there were no Dazes at all.
See, I used to think like that as well. And I was doing it, as you can see, like in my original list. And I agree with that statement that they will play around it. But if they believe that you are still on that, they could still play around it, even if you don't have it in your deck. So I don't know if I 100% agree, like, just showing it that one time is going to make it. Because I have played against people that just don't care. They'll just still
sometimes even with, sometimes I just have to gem cards because I know I don't have the time.
That's the point.
We don't have the time for this, so we have to.
You just got to jam.
Yeah, you just have to jam sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to playing one Daze, but I am opposed to playing any more than one.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that good of a card in this deck.
Daze is a nice card.
It has high upside.
It does have high upside. But we do have to be careful about having too many cards that just become redundant if we draw too many of them. Mm-hmm. Like having too many Ether Vials and then too many Chalices and then too many Days is just going to be really crippling to just our threats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to playing it, but I think it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phantasmal Image, really good card in Legacy. Really good card right now.
Oh my god. Yes. Being able to copy a Grizzlebrand is a great feeling.
Grizzlebrand, Emrakul.
Oh my gosh.
What's it called?
Yes.
What's the reanimator creature that you have to pay mana or stuff gets countered?
Oh, the Chancellor.
Chancellor, yeah, Chancellor of Annex or something.
Yep. So in the Sneak and Show matchup, if you get Vial on 2, you're really protected against Emrakul.
Right.
So if your opponent goes sneak attack you, and you're able to copy it end of turn, Or even if they play show and tell and copy it, and then you play it and copy theirs, it's the greatest feeling. Being able to Emrakul your opponent is such a great feeling.
Just to be clear, we have to have an Ether Vial on 2. We're not allowed to put Phantasmal Image into play when they play show and tell. Or we could do it, but we're not allowed to copy. We're not allowed to copy anything that they're putting in place. So if they play show and tell, we play Phantasmal Image. They play Emrakul. We're not allowed to copy the Emrakul because Phantasmal Image says you may have Phantasmal enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an illusion. Actually, this has a weird wording. You may have Phantasmal Image enter the battlefield as a copy.
Yeah, so the way it works is if you show and tell, Image doesn't see Emrakul as a card that's on the battlefield. So that's the interaction. You cannot copy an Emrakul that just came into play at the same time.
Yeah, so it's weird. It's worded here very strangely, but the way clones work is they are cloning as they enter the battlefield.
Yep.
So when both the cards hit the battlefield, Phantasmal Image needs to copy something, and so what the game does is it backs up to a point where it could copy something. So all of a sudden, Emrakul is not on the battlefield anymore, and I can only copy what is on the battlefield because it's only copying things as it's entering the battlefield, not as it has entered the battlefield. It's a very, very important interaction to know with show and tell. Honestly, there's a lot of situations against show and tell. I don't even copy the Emrakul. I just have like 2 lords out, and I just copy another lord and kill them on my next turn.
Yeah, I've seen that before too.
But Phantasmal Image has a huge upside in Legacy right now. I totally agree with the 4 of. You can copy like the Laret Mage, the Merit Lage. You can copy a lot of stuff from Reanimator. Show and tell. There's just a lot of big creatures right now. I have played against Nitfits, and I copied their Grave Titan a million times.
Yep.
So I had just multiple Grave Titans.
More importantly, even if your opponent doesn't play creatures that are awesome, you can always copy your true name. So having 8 true names in your deck seems pretty great.
So yeah, aside from your opponent, we do have a very powerful card, which we'll get into eventually. True Name Nemesis being like the card that makes this deck a deck in Legacy.
Yes.
Or it's also a card that has made a lot of other decks in Legacy as well.
Oh yeah, and copying a Silvergill Adept is fine as well.
Oh yeah. So even if this thing was ever targeted, we at least got some value out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It also helps, with the lords close out the game quite quickly.
Yep.
And remember, we can copy our Mutavaults. I've actually copied Smuggler's Copter a few times.
Oh, yeah, I have too.
And then I just double coptered my opponent for the win.
It works.
So...
Versatile card. I like versatile cards in Legacy are very, very strong. So
versatile, but a little clunky. But very powerful. Big upside. Big upside to Phantasmal Image. Can block Delver. It's nice to have another blocker for that damn thing.
Yes, I hate Delver. I hate getting Delvered.
I also hate getting Delvered. We're gonna Merfolk. That's okay. We're gonna Merfolk them.
Yeah. Counter that with our Merfolks. Seems good to me.
There sure are a hell lot of non-Merfolk creatures in this Merfolk deck. At the same time, we're playing with all creature types, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So, moving on. Unless there's anything else you want to say about Phantasmal Image?
I mean, hopefully we get to see some cool interactions in our games with Phantasmal Image.
Hopefully the game doesn't break on us. Against a show and tell deck, they show and telled, and I put Phantasmal Image in play. And it didn't let me copy any of my creatures.
Oh,
and the game sort of crashed. Or how did it work? I'm not sure what I did. It didn't crash. I'm not sure what happened, but eventually it copied my True Name Nemesis, but it didn't actually give it protection, and my opponent just targeted my my True Name Nemesis. Oh, I get it. I copied my True Name Nemesis, but it didn't let me choose an opponent to get protection from.
What?
And I didn't get protection from my opponent. It had protection from nobody, and my opponent just targeted with some random card and I lost.
That seems really weird.
Oh, it was
I
so
should not do that.
it was so so
Honestly.
stupid. Let's hope. I mean, this card is weird, so I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's
they have
weird.
not figured out all the bugs with this card.
I mean, think about it. 2-mana clone. That's so good.
Yeah.
I put that about that.
So moving on to Silvergill Adept, I really don't really have much to say about Silvergill Adept. It's always just
Staple.
it's
It's a staple.
yeah, it's a staple. Draws us cards, makes the deck a little bit more fluid, helps us grind through a lot of decks.
A little awkward against Leovold, where normally we don't care about Leovold.
Oh right, yeah. Usually we're allowed to draw as many cards as we want, even though we're not really drawing all that many cards.
Right.
So Leovold also shuts off Smuggler's Copter.
Yes, it does.
Hey, curiosity,
Awkward.
is there any time that you don't draw?
If I have awesome cards, yeah, I don't need to. Like, if there are cards that are in the matchup that I absolutely need, I don't loot. Because if I need to draw another awesome card, then I get the philosophy of you're just going to draw a better card.
Sure.
I don't necessarily agree with it at some time, like specific times.
Okay, I get it.
If I have like 2 really good cards that I need, aka like Force of Will, and another good card, or like a card I can pitch to it, I won't do it because I don't need to. But yeah, that's my philosophy about it.
Okay.
So
So moving to the Lords, how much do you love the Lords?
I mean they're key. Like against the field, you're playing against a brainstorm deck. Yeah, you're gonna want Island Walk.
I actually hate this card. I actually do not like either of these guys. I find them very underwhelming. They're very hard to get, like, against Delver decks. They're going to have a lot of removal.
Okay.
And it's very hard to get, like, say, just more than one on the battlefield. And even if you do have more than one, you still might... yeah, I have trouble getting more than one. Like, a lot of things have to go right. I have to have, like, Cavernous Souls and, like, Aether Vial, and then I'm just dumping them onto the battlefield. But on top of that, there is just enough decks now that don't have islands. There are a large...
Really?
There's just, for example, like, Knitfits, the red Dragon Stompy deck, Death and Taxes, Elves. And I think Elves is a very strong deck right now. Julian, what's his name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the Elves
Elf
Master.
Master.
He's won 2 Legacy challenges now. It's just a matter of time before he, like, wins an Open, and then... For some reason, no one pays attention to Magic the Gathering Online results, when really that's, like, the heart of
Yeah.
Magic results before they make it to, like, the Grand Prix stage.
Yeah.
Death and Taxes, pretty popular on paper. Not so popular online, maybe because of price issues, given Rishadan Port. But
Yeah.
when that changes, that'll be a problem. I mean, I like them against Stoneforge decks, so long as I can race them, and that's becoming harder to do because of, what's it called? Sword of Fire and Ice.
Yeah.
And if you don't have 2 of them out, then they're just never going to synergize together. Although I honestly can't say, like, anything else in this deck matters. Well, True Name matters a little bit.
True Name is, and you just brought up the point that I was going to make. Against Golgari Charm, this guy is great.
Yes, it is. It is definitely mandatory against Golgari Charm.
There's other,
but they have to have a
cards
ton
that
of removal anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but you could also play around it, by
I get it. Yeah.
playing a Lord. So that's like a huge reason why I was drawn to this deck. So originally, I don't know if you guys, any of the viewers know who I am, but I used to play Legacy with 12 Pose, which preyed upon Miracles decks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the big factor of me playing that, because I wanted to beat Miracles.
We should have been playing Merfolk, because we were preying on that too.
But I just had so much fun playing 12 Post. Anyways,
Sure.
hard casting Emrakul was a huge reason why I played it too. So
that is a feel-good moment, I tell you.
and then being able to Karakas, bounce it to your hand, and recasting it, that was the greatest. Okay, so after that deck died, and yes, I tried to play with it when Top was banned. I had no success, and I threw it away.
Okay.
I feel bad, but I spent a lot of time on that deck. So after that, I figured, what do I want to do with my legacy deck? What deck do I want to play? And I just started to play Sultai. Reed Duke had a pretty interesting list with
Right. Leovold.
like Leovold,
Leovold.deck.
Name, Dark Deathrite, and Noble Hierarchs, and I basically built a similar deck to that, and I came to the result of playing two different Leovold decks that I knew I didn't want to be a Leovold deck, because I felt like the card was good but not great. It didn't just straight up win the game when you resolved it.
Sure.
It like cantripped essentially, and that's not that great. So after that, I was back to the books to see what type of deck. I tried a Delver deck, a Sultai Delver, and I
love Sultai Delver. It was my first legacy deck.
Yeah, I didn't like it too much. I had really bad results. I played in like 3 leagues, got wrecked, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do?
Moving on.
I knew what I wanted to do in Legacy was play a high pressure deck with force of will, because being able to have a game against the combo decks, you need force of will,
right?
And you need a way to beat down your opponent. So I was more drawn to Merfolk, and this was more philosophically, thinking about it, where I wanted like Grixis Delver was probably the best deck when I started thinking about this, but
yes.
I looked at like what could make True Name even better, and it's these lords. Back to these lords, we can start attacking for like 4 and 5 pretty easily.
Yep.
And it just gets way out of control. And after testing this with Tuxdev on the stream, like I learned this deck.
Shout out to Tuxdev.
Yeah, he trained me really well in this deck and how to mulligan with it and all the things I needed to know. And I added a few cards to the deck for like the Smuggler's Copter and the Caverns, or like my, I would say, contribution to this deck. But yeah, it only took me 2 weeks to really learn this deck, and I mean, for me, that's like great because I was prepared to battle in Legacy, the Legacy GP in Vegas. So, but back to the Lords, I think the Lords are very good in this deck. I don't think you're giving them enough credit. It allows you to turn the corner in
it does
the matchups that they like wrath your board. Being able to get through, your opponents don't necessarily necessarily have to have islands.
Right.
And yeah, that's the huge difference between Legacy and Modern, is you play like Spreading Seas.
Yes, we are in some ways guaranteed island walk one way or another.
Yeah, that's the huge difference. But
and here we're like pretty dependent. This is basically our Spreading Seas. This is the only guaranteed way of getting in damage.
It's guaranteed. That guy.
This plus
oh
this.
My god.
Click is not so bad, to be honest, too. In a lot of matchups, this might as well be another True Name Nemesis.
Before I didn't have that main, but I saw myself boarding it in every game, so I'm gonna try it main from now on. But yeah, I think Lords are very important to this deck, even though they might not seem great in Legacy.
Well, I'm definitely not playing less than 4 of each.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I also talked to Tuxdev, and he says I talked to him about the Storm matchup, like what I was siding out, and he said he sides out 2 Lords. I'm like, well, if you're siding out some Lords against Storm, I don't even know where I want the Lords anymore.
The thing is, they're kind of vanilla. They don't really help our matchup interact. The interaction wise, it doesn't help. So for example, like Silvergill and Phantasmal, or excuse me, just Silvergill helps you draw into your sideboard cards. Smuggler's Copter also helps you, because even if you have like a Mutavault, you could activate your Mutavault, attack with the Copter, and at least you're digging for your cards that you need,
Right.
like extra Force of Wills, your Fluster Storms, your Grafdigger's Cage, like, or even Vendilion Click. So, siding out like two Lord of Atlantis is fine. Like we're bringing in a decent amount of cards, so these are just more vanilla cards. That
I understand it's a vanilla card, but also
Yeah.
this is one of the few matches where if I do have two of these guys out, it puts a really good clock on the Storm opponent. But I do understand that
Yeah.
it is very important to have, like serious interaction against them.
Yeah. So in that matchup, it's not necessarily about merfolking them. It's about
Yeah, we have to control them.
yeah, we have to figure out like what they're like. We could easily die on turn 1 or 2.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that we,
Thank God
set
we're a blue
up.
deck.
Yeah, we want to set up Chalice first if we can, or at least try to get that on their table, because it forces them to try to draw into their like Echoing Truths or other cards. Like Hercule's Recall is also another one. But if we are able to counter them, from doing like interacting with our Chalice, then we win the game.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay, now going on to the card that makes this deck such a deck, and that actually, in my opinion, has warped Legacy for forever.
It has.
True Name Nemesis. This card is so powerful. Everyone thought it should be banned when it was first released. And then over enough months, people just adjusted. They found out, Golgari Charm and Toxic Deluge and
that's another
Liliana
card.
the Veil, and there's a multitude of answers actually for True Name Nemesis if they want to. And then eventually, I think Council's Judgment was printed.
Yes, that's a good one.
But almost every deck has a plan for True Name Nemesis, is sort of where I'm getting at. It is just so ridiculously powerful. And it sounds like this was the reason you wanted to...
I wanted to play
attracted
some
to
unfair
Merfolk.
magic. Yeah, I want to play some unfair magic. True Name definitely has no interaction with your opponents. It just says, take this damage. And it blocks so well against Umezawa's Jit and Batterskull.
Eldrazi decks.
Oh yeah, it's okay against Eldrazi because they could still Reality Smasher over you.
Yeah, but that plus a Lord, you can easily trade.
Yeah, that's okay. But
I have found
I'm not a huge fan of
one
that
True
method.
Name has brick walled like a giant field of Eldrazi.
yeah,
Like,
there are situations where it is good. Yeah. But that
Reduke
matchup I
said,
don't like.
pardon me?
I don't like that matchup against Eldrazi. It's really rough.
You don't like the Eldrazi matchup?
No.
I love the Eldrazi matchup.
Wow.
Sounds like I'm
We are
running good
different
or you're
people
running
then.
bad. No.
Yeah, I think I'm running. Well, they normally have their good draws against me, so.
I don't know how my configuration is different from yours.
They just Eldrazi.
I usually like to play with... I play with a lot more dismembers than you do.
That's
for
probably
sure.
why.
I also have some, if I can, I have dismembers on the main.
Yeah, that definitely helps. But like Dismember is good against the creature decks, which is obviously why you have a better matchup. But yeah, I like to be versatile. Like I don't like to just because a Dismember in the main means if I'm not playing against if I'm playing against Storm, then it's just a dead card.
Yeah, but my personal philosophy is you're allowed at least 2 dead cards per matchup. Like, how good is this against Death and Taxes? How good is this against... There's a lot of decks where this is not very good.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and also against other Chalice decks, it's just dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the thing is with Chalice, it's such high upside against a lot of the decks in Legacy that you need to play 4 of.
Right, and this is just a good card.
Yeah, this is just a... And
it's good when it's good, then just useless when it's useless.
Yeah,
this
so
is
against
amazing when it's
creature decks, you can still beat them.
Yep.
The thing is, you don't necessarily need a Dismember in the main to beat that deck. Whereas a Chalice against a Storm deck, you play this on turn 2, it hoses them, like, really bad.
Or even against Storm on turn 1, thanks to Gemstone Caverns.
Shout out to Gemstone Caverns.
Shout out to Gemstone Caverns.
But yeah, true name, broken.
Yeah, Reed Duke said his Leovold deck was so powerful because he could play a turn 2 True Name Nemesis, which is like the best thing you could do in Legacy. And we are capable of playing it uncounterably.
Yes.
Through like 8 different sources. And on top of that, we have like 8 copies of this card in theory.
Yeah, in theory.
And it's not always a 3/1 creature, like we said. We've got the Lords, so this thing can be even bigger than that.
Yes. Yeah, that's what makes this the best, in my opinion, True Name deck.
Let's hope that statement holds true. Alright, Vendilion Click. I love this card. I just love this card. This is just a really good versatile card in Legacy. I mean, they play Sneak Attack. You can... Sorry, not Sneak Attack.
Show and Tell?
Yeah, Show and Tell. You can, like, look at their hand and take their one target away. We can name Cavern on Wizard. It's playable against everything. It can block Delver. You can, like, filter out, like, a dead Chalice of the Void in your hand. A lot of applications. So, like, why are you high on this card right now?
Yeah, to go back to, because if anyone's thinking about what we meant by Show and Tell, if you Vendilion Click and then they put in Omniscience, what you can do is you can look at their hand before they even get to play anything off their Omniscience. Let's say they only have 1 Gristlebrand. You just disrupted them really, really badly. So that's what we meant by Show and Tell versus or Vendilion Clicks into a Show and Tell against an Omniscience deck. It's very good.
I mean, like, if they Show and Tell and I click in... now I don't understand what you mean. I want to click in response to them playing Show and Tell.
Oh.
And then, like, take their Omniscience.
Sure, yeah.
And then they're left with their intuitions and garbage like that in their hand.
I see what you're saying. Okay. But it also works in my situation, too, if they're an Omniscience deck. But the reason why
I'm terrified if Omniscience is in play.
I have Echoing Truth Omniscience.
Now, one thing you could do when we get later is you could Venser in and bounce Omniscience.
Yes, you
can. That does work.
That is the main reason why I have 2.
Yeah, this is if you ever have trouble against Sneak and Show, Venser is like the best card. Yes. It's just a huge hoser. Also, shout out to Crocus. That's also a pretty good card, but this is better again. Like, Omniscience is pretty popular right now, so Venser is like the go-to card.
Yeah. All right, so Vendilion Click. Vendilion Click is awesome against combo decks because you can get them off their hand or disrupt their hand. But also it's a loot. It's not, you can in our deck we definitely prize looting. So and if we don't have a Smuggler's Copter and we want to Vendilion Click ourselves to help draw us into another Force of Will, get rid of that extra Aether Vial or Chalice that we're holding, it's definitely a benefit there. But it blocks Delver, which is really important.
Blocks Delver, that is wonderful.
It's very good.
Delver is so annoying.
It is. So, like, when you start playing this deck against Delver, consider Force of Willing a turn 1 Delver. If your hand can't deal with it, you should probably Force of Will.
I almost always Force of Will the turn 1 Delver. I hate that card.
You don't always need to, but it definitely makes your game smooth. You
have a
definitely
little bit more room to breathe.
Yes. But yeah, Vendilion Click it's so great in Legacy, in my opinion.
So, Force of Will, I mean, that's why we're playing blue in the first place. If Force of Will didn't exist, we probably don't play Merfolk.
Yeah.
We are like an aggro tempo deck that can utilize Force of Will very well.
Yeah, look at our percentage of colored cards. I'm pretty sure it's
high enough.
It's definitely high enough to play a Force of Will.
It also helps us get rid of cards that we don't need, like maybe Curse Catcher's not very good in the matchup, or Echoing Truth is useless, or maybe our curve is too high right now for like Cleek or True Name Nemesis.
Yeah.
Force of Will is there for us.
Mm-hmm. Not too much to talk about. Huh?
Yeah. Is there anything interesting to say about Force of Will? Actually, do you know what? There's a lot to say about Force of Will. Like, how are you playing with this card on the play and draw against Delver decks? Because, like, Delver decks, like, on the perspective of Delver decks, there are so many different sideboard plans and so many different perspectives on how to play the matchup. Like, some people say, well, you have to take out all the Force of Wills on the play, otherwise it's card disadvantage.
I actually do trim Force of Will sometimes, but I've always kept in at least 2.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's an idea I've never heard of.
Yeah, so even like I used to side them all out for most decks, but I've learned that even the games where like against Stoneforge decks, for example, I used to take them out. But
really,
I learned that 2-for-1ing yourself against the fair decks is not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Because you get to decide what card they can't play, which is huge because you want to also have your game plan, but also disrupt anything crazy that they might try. So, for example, if they play like a Cataclysm at the perfect time, I don't know if you know what that card does, but it's like a Wrath of God, essentially.
Okay.
So if we go way too wide and like you need a way to stop them from doing something. So
correct.
Yeah. So and then against like the Terminus deck, the Miracles deck, I used to take some number of them out because you don't always want to 2-for-1 yourself. I've learned that 2-for-1ing yourself with this deck is not bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
It's not so bad.
But I feel like it's amplified. I would say I do not feel hurt by being 2-for-1 except in Delver matchups. This is where, I mean, I do want to Force a Will like a turn 1 Delver, but if I'm ever going to feel the hurt of card disadvantage, it would be in Delver decks that can utilize, Deathrite Shaman as a win condition, and then just constantly brainstorm and ponder into removal, and just kill me with this Deathrite Shaman. Or 2 Deathrite Shamans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so looking at our sideboard against Delver decks, let's see. We would want to bring in... I actually don't like Flusterstorm. I love Back to Basics, unless they're playing just the straight blue-red version. Because most Delver decks play like Deathrite. This is a good card against Deathrite as well. Because, they're not untapping and...
Okay.
Utilizing their mana. I mean, because most Deathrite decks are like not playing basics anyway.
What's Back to Basics cost right now? Like, it used to be like $40 online, and then it went under 10.
Oh, really?
And then I made a tweet about it. Get your Back to Basics, and I like bought 4. Like, I wasn't even using the card, but I made sure that I had it in my toolbox. I don't remember how much I bought this card online for, but then I sold. I think I bought it. I want to say that I sold it for 5 ticks. And then the next time I looked at it, it was like 25, and then it went to something absurd after that.
Yeah,
and then I don't even know why it went so high, but it eventually crashed back down to Earth.
I have no idea about prices when it comes to like.
If it's under $10, you get your Back to Basics. We have no idea when that thing's going.
It's 11.
Sky high. Huh?
Right now it's at 11.
It's good enough. You get them.
You get them now. At least 2.
I'm not a fan of Back to Basics, actually. I've played with this card a decent chunk, and my results are just too, like, wishy-washy.
It's so strong against some matchups. Obviously, any deck that doesn't play basics, this card's a house. We do have a good number of basics in our deck, so we can actually play this card very efficiently. Against lands, it's great. Against Delver decks that don't play basics, great.
I guess that's one problem, is I never really had any success against the Delver decks. Like, I brought this thing in, but it didn't help me enough.
You can pitch it to force a will.
You
I mean,
can.
there's a lot of good
That's a good
aspects to
point.
this card. There's a lot of good aspects to this card.
Great art too.
Hopefully, it is. All the Saga cards I love.
Has
That's
nothing
actually
to
when
do
I
with the
started
card. I
playing.
have no idea what this has to do with Back to Basics.
I don't either. It has black, white, blue. It has red. It has all 5 colors.
Oh yeah, it
That's
does.
why it's a great card. Great card.
So yeah, good against. Okay, so hold on. So you want to use this against Delver decks? What else are you bringing in against Delver? What is okay? Actually, there's so much Delver out there. What is the sideboard plan against Delver?
Okay. So sideboard is we want to bring in Jit. We want to bring in Dismember. That's 2.
That's 2.
We want to bring in Vendilion Click. That's 3. We want to bring in Back to Basics. That's 5.
And what are you
Those
removing?
are the five main cards.
Generally
So-
against Delver, I'm taking out 1 Vial, and then I'm taking out I don't know what else I'm taking out.
So Chalice is great against Delver decks for the most part.
Sure.
Unless they're playing the Colligan's command deck, we don't necessarily need all 4.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to take out is, let's see here. I have definitely taken out 1 Vial, 1 Curse Catcher. Sometimes I take out 1 or 2 Phantasmal Image, depending on the player draw. And then
When do you want more?
for what?
When do you
Phantasmal?
want more Phantasmal Images? The player of the draw.
See, the thing with Phantasmal Image is when you copy something under a vial, it's not safe. They can turn their dead cards into live cards. So Fatal Push, Bolt. If they target your Phantasmal Image, it still dies, even though their spell gets countered. So you have to be
But
careful.
it's a 1-for-1.
It is, but it turns their dead cards into live
Okay.
cards.
Okay.
That's the point. So yeah, I think I take out 1 Vial, 1 Curse Catcher, 2 Phantasmal. That's 4. The last card is tricky. I think I take out 1 Force of Will, actually.
That
Yeah.
seems fair. Some Delver players told me I should not from they weren't giving me Merfolk advice, they were giving me Delver advice, but they didn't like that I had too many, like I was bringing in Clique against Delver decks because they thought the mana curve was too high.
Yeah, but okay, so the thing is, what are we going to do then? Like, how do we interact against a Delver deck? How do we trade our, into their Delver? How do we kill their deck?
We do actually have Phantasmal Image. We do
Like
have
I
Smuggler's
said.
Copter.
Yeah, but Phantasmal Image just gets targeted, whereas, you know what I mean?
Well, so does this. I mean, it has a little bit more resistance to Fatal Push, but not that much.
But it's more of like a disruptive card. It's way stronger than Phantasmal Image. Like your game plan is to drop Chalice against Delvers to shut them out of those 1-drop removals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the matchup is very tricky because if they turn 1, turn 2 you, like with Delvers, you just get ran over. You can't really get back into the game with just Phantasmal Image, in my opinion.
Right.
Whereas, there's so many different plans you can do with this deck. It's not like right or wrong, in a sense. I've just had more success playing Vendilion Click against them than Phantasmal Image.
Right,
is
okay.
What I think.
That's fine. That's fair. And to reiterate something, I like taking out 1 Vial because I think we still need some number of ways of getting around counterspells. I don't know about you. Like, I talked about this with you. I very often against Delver players, I'm running into their counterspells. They have tons of counter magic.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, Aetherval still also helps us get around Wasteland and help us catch up into the game, even if they have like a Delver Deathrite Shaman hand. We are capable of deploying our entire fleet.
Mm-hmm.
But you, of course, you don't want to draw too many of these. This would be pretty bad. So taking out 1 makes makes it feel a little bit more balanced in that manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just drawing too many vials is just not a recipe for success in most of your games. So if you can kind of alleviate that, I mean, it's such a great card, but it's also like a double-edged sword because if you have one, you necessarily don't need a second one.
Right.
Because you want to keep it on 2 for a long time, and then when you get to 3, that's when you're playing your true names usually, or in this case, Mendelian clicks as well. But the matchup is very dicey. It's like a 50-50, I feel like, in most cases. Chalice, I've actually taken out 4 Chalices as well, and just played the game plan of just trying to get them.
I can totally respect this, especially since they're playing with Deathrite Shaman into maybe some sort of Planeswalker or because they're playing True Name Nemesis themselves.
Yeah, I think today we should try against the Delver decks just to take out 4 Chalices, bring in whatever we can, and just play our deck.
I wouldn't mind doing that on the draw.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because they get so many of their 1-drops out.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Okay, so like...
Chalice on the play is when you really, really need it.
And I would also think... I don't mind taking out Curse Catcher on the draw either, but we might want to have all 4 Curse Catchers on the play to help protect Chalice of the Void.
Yeah.
But well, we'll see. We'll figure it out. But getting on to Chalice of the Void, this is what makes this deck, I think, competitive in Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, I think Legacy used to be in a spot, like before Eldrazi came around, because Eldrazi became like the big Chalice of the Void deck on the block. Once upon a time, there was a deck called Temur Delver. We don't see that deck anymore these days.
No. I have played against it every once in a while, but it's not good.
Yeah.
Nimble Mongoose is the key card to that deck.
So the... But anyway, we weren't the only Chalice of the Void deck on the block. Eldrazi came around. I feel like the format has adjusted to the Eldrazi deck. What I want to say is Merfolk used to be so good prior to the printing of all the Eldrazi. Like, I was winning just non-stop. My win percentage was incredibly high. But now there are enough varied types of decks that Chalice of the Void has weakened a lot. Like, even the Delver decks right now can't be super cold to this card. So their converted mana cost is a little bit more spread out than it was before, and especially post-board they are. Which is why we're going to try to experiment with something outside of Chalice of the Void on the draw.
Oh yeah, back to Aether Vial, before I forget to say this. The only time you can keep a 1-lander is if you have this card in hand. Right.
It's basically
it's a Tux Dev rule.
Sure.
Yeah.
But aside from that, Chalice of the Void still a fantastic card. Still can get tons of free wins.
Yeah. Against most deck, against Delver decks, playing this on turn 2 is so strong on the play. Against Storm decks, it's great. It's actually very good against Elves. You just need to hold your Forcibles for their natural orders and their big spells. Like you want to counter the Green Sun Zenith for 3 or higher because they can get Reclamation Sage.
Right.
But Chalice is pretty strong against that deck too. Against Miracles, it plays a lot of 1-drops.
Oh, it's very good against Miracles. It's everything. Yeah. I feel like against Miracles, it's just a battle of Chalice of the Void. We play it, we protect it, and if we protect it, we win.
Yep. I mean, that's why Chalice is in this deck. It can just straight up hose people game 1. Games 2 and 3, you have to be a little more careful because they're going to obviously bring in their side hate.
Yeah.
But generally, this card is very good, and that's why it's main.
And, okay, so going to the sideboard, Flusterstorm. I mean, just an overall good utility card against a lot of different decks.
Mostly Storm is why I have it in there. It just makes our matchup a little stronger.
You like it so much against Storm? Like, I bring it in against Storm, but I'm not always thrilled about it. Mostly because
Yeah,
they have.
the reason why it's really good is actually not a reason what you're thinking it's good for. So it's a 1-for-1 in against like duresses, like thought seizes.
Correct.
So
So you just want to
it's
burn
not
it on a
necessary.
cantrip.
Well, the thing is, if I'm holding 2-land Chalice Flusterstorm and I'm on the play, this protects me to keep Chalice. Chalice on 1 against Storm is so huge.
Okay, so you want to turn 1, Flusterstorm their duress
Yeah,
to protect the Chalice of the Void. Alright, that's fair. I can buy that.
yeah, yeah. And then it's actually just all around decent against Storm because, yeah, they have to play around it. If they see it in your hand, like, if they could Taxian probe
Right.
you, for example, they know it's in your hand, they have to play around it.
Right.
Like, it's a very solid card against Storm.
Okay. We force them to play around it.
Yeah.
It's
a strong card against other spell decks. Like, I bring it in against Show and Tell. I bring it in against Miracles sometimes. It's just good against spell decks.
Yep.
That's all.
It is the spell pierce that we can play with Chalice of the Void on the board.
Yes, it is. That's another good interaction that you should brought up.
Yeah. The because of Storm, the Storm copies aren't cast. They're just put on the stack immediately. So if Chalice of the Void is on 1, and we play Flusterstorm, the original Flusterstorm for 1 that we cast gets countered, but all the Storm copies still go on the stack. Storm says, when you cast the spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. You may choose new copies for the. You may choose new targets for the copies. So they just go on the stack underneath the Chalice of the Void. So if we play if they play Duress, and we have, what's a good example here?
A good example would be like Infernal Tutor, I guess.
Right,
some card we care about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to say there's a Chalice of Void on 1, but then they don't play Duress, and we're not playing Flusterstorm.
Yeah, or if, even like a Hurkyl's Recall, or
Hurkyl's Recall is a big card.
Or Echoing Truth.
Right.
Yeah.
We touched on Back to Basics already.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your new tech against Stoneforge decks.
Yeah, I very much dislike Sword of Feasting. Why did I say Feasting? Sword of Fire and Ice. That you really want this card.
It's hilarious. They put a picture of a sword.
They did
on the
body
picture.
and mind. It's body and mind.
Oh yeah.
And that's not the one we're stealing. But yeah, I'm interested to see how good it is. It's definitely going to help that matchup because even sideboard games like 2 and 3, you really, really need to stop them from playing Sword of Fire and Ice. Like it is so huge.
Yeah,
like,
if I understand this card correctly, we are going to gain control of it and keep the equipment no matter what, even if they like Swords to Plowshares our Germ token.
You gain control of target equipment.
Yeah, it is ours.
Ours.
Not theirs anymore.
Nope.
But then we're going to put it on True Name Nemesis. The Sword of Fire and Ice.
That's a good game.
Okay, so this will be a very interesting card to see. So this is a new edition.
Yes.
And yeah, Stoneforge Mystic, that Sword of Fire and Ice is such a beating. I'm very interested to see how this card is going to work out.
Me too.
Because I guess after we take the Sword of Fire and Ice, I'm not really afraid of anything else in the deck.
Right. That's the most important thing.
If this card is very good, I mean, this could be a huge innovation actually.
Yeah.
It might end up being just better than Manriki Kassari.
I think having both is really key because the idea is you can Phantasmal Image, copy their Stoneforge, get this, then no equipments they play matter. So, for example, if we don't have a True Name in play, at least we have this to stall them from playing their Batter Skulls and their Umzalas.
Okay. So we touched on Click. Click is
good.
But
the reason why you would want to bring in more clicks would be against like combo decks. It's good against Stoneforge because if they search one up and they try to tap 2 mana, you can respond to their activation and remove the equipment that they have in their hand.
Right.
and force him to draw a new card. But yeah.
So Venser, where are all the spots you're bringing in Venser in?
Venser comes in against Dark Depths.
Mm-hmm.
It comes in against, most importantly, the Show and Tell
Yes,
matchup.
the show and tell variations.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot aside from those two. There is also Ensnaring Bridge.
Right, yeah. So we'll be bringing in against the Dragon Stompy decks.
Yeah. It seems okay against the... Yeah, those are like the main reasons you bring in Venser.
It is Echoing Truth on a body for one permanent.
And because you're playing Aether Vial, it makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's a card I never play with.
Yeah.
You seem to love this card. And you know what, to be fair, I mean, this card's totally toolbox playable. It costs 1 Phyrexian mana, why not?
Yeah.
Surgical Extraction. So where are you bringing Surgical Extraction in?
It's a way to actually remove a card versus our other Graveyard Hate card. So Extraction allows you to interact against Dredge, obviously.
Yeah.
So if they go turn... most of the Dredge decks are just manaless Dredge. So what they're doing is they're slowly creeping, and this is a great card against them. It's great against the actual Reanimator type of decks because you actually 2-for-1 them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're tapped out, like, you're really getting them.
Yep.
Against Loam and Lands, you want to try to aim for their Dark Depths.
Right.
That's a huge card. It's backbreaking for them because then they're forced to only win off Tireless Tracker, potentially, or Punishing Fire, which is super slow against us.
Without Surgical Extraction, what would you say our matchup against lands is like?
It's 50-50.
Okay. So with Surgical Extraction, what?
It increases. I mean, not a whole lot, but it depends. Depends on our hand, obviously, which makes the percentages different. So
how many Surgical Extractions should we play to make this like a good matchup?
Lands?
Yeah.
The thing is, we would be altering our other bad matchups to become way worse. So I think there's a fine balance here where we don't want to add too many cards because it doesn't actually benefit us, in the long run. So I design decks to be able to beat our bad matchups, but I don't want to make our I don't want to straight up lose to any matchup.
Okay.
If I don't have to.
So you just have enough game.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to turn my whole deck into a different deck just so I can beat our really bad matchup. I still have game against our bad matchups, but so my vision of a bad matchup where I just basically concede to is like Goblins.
Oh yeah, okay.
I have never beaten Goblins. I've gotten close, like I won a game, but
I've never.
They just go way too wide. They have too much card advantage. It's crazy because most of their draws are just ridiculous, and that's why I lose to them.
I can't remember if I'm certain I have played against Goblins, but I don't know if I really have.
Yeah, they just get like Krenko with like haste, and then they just start pumping out a million tokens, and you're just dead on the spot. It's such a ridiculous matchup, but like. Yeah, it's possible to beat them if they have like a slow draw and you're just like, okay, I got Umzawa's Jit on True Name, let's go. And even then, it might be way too slow.
But like Goblins is like such a
irrelevant
percentage of the metagame.
It's a fringe deck. Yeah, it's a fringe deck. I'm not too worried to play against that matchup, but yes, it's probably the worst matchup that we can see. So my point is, yes, Lands is a popular deck. I've played against it just to increase our matchup just by a hair or two. Doesn't mean it's important to wreck our sideboard so that we're losing to decks that we, you know what I'm saying?
But Lands is a pretty popular deck.
It is,
and I also would argue that Lands. I'm very concerned, in a Grand Prix.
Uh-huh.
If you want to win that Grand Prix, you have to beat lands. Like,
Okay.
maybe even in the top 8, you have to face this deck at some point.
Yeah, so actually 2 of my losses were to lands.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I'm pretty conscious of, like, the route
what's the
to winning a GP. Certain decks you absolutely have to beat, and lands
yeah.
looks like it's one of those decks.
I was more prepared for elves. I did play against one elf player and I beat it.
I played against 3.
Yeah, that's a rough matchup. So I hedged more against elves than I did lands.
Okay.
So that was the difference, in my opinion, from my build.
I also agree on hedging, like also pushing yourself against elves, because I also thought that was going to be a pretty big. I didn't know if it was going to be a breakout deck yet at the GP, because I knew through the bannings that elves.
Yeah.
I thought elves benefited the most.
Yep.
And that Julian guy is proving it, even though it hasn't really made its way to paper yet.
Yeah.
I guess he needed to play it at GP Vegas.
Yeah, and but I mean, if you think about it, what we can also take out like a pithing needle, I guess, and add surgical now. I don't know. I mean, that might be good.
I don't have a lot of experience against lands. Like, I know it's a big deck, but I just don't play against it very much. When I playtest, I was just up against Grixis Control over and over and over again, and a bunch of Grixis Delver over and over and over again. And I was dissatisfied. Well, it's very interesting talking to you, because you're saying you have a 50-50 matchup against Delver.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked at this like a failure. Like, I was very unsatisfied with it, because I also had the 50-50 record against Delver. And I didn't like it. I thought, historically, I had a positive matchup against Delver, and it's very possible that it was against poorer players. Because, playtesting for the GP, all the good players now started playing online in preparation for the GP. I wanted an edge against Delver, because that's also a deck that you're going to see pretty often on the route to winning the Grand Prix.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I play a deck, I want to be able to beat the best decks and have a decent matchup even against our bad matchups. Like, that's the type of deck I want to play. I want to have a chance against our bad matchups, and I feel like this deck has the best route. And the main strategy I was focused on when I started playing a new Legacy deck was apply pressure, have a way to counter or interact against the storm decks or the combo decks.
Yeah, no one likes to lose on turn 2.
Yeah, so yeah.
All right.
I think it's okay. It's okay place to be.
Where else? Okay, so you said surgical loam. Is there anywhere else that we want? I mean, I guess we're bringing this in against Storm.
Yes, I actually do bring this in against Storm.
And bring this in
it's
against
just
Storm.
kind of awkward in the way you play it, because it does get countered to your Chalice, which is the main card. So yes, it's worse than our other sideboard card, Grafdigger's Cage, because we can actually play our Cage before we play our Chalice on turn 2. So, but Surgical is pretty versatile in the matchups that we want it, and it's not great against Storm, so it's not huge. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our one of Dismember. Like, this is, I mean, I'll talk about it at the end. Like, the one of thing is just really weird to me. We have a one of Dismember in the sideboard.
Yeah.
This is a card I love a lot.
Yeah, Dismember is great. I bring it in against creature decks, obviously. Our life total isn't super, like it doesn't really hurt us too bad to play it, but I feel like if we're playing it against a creature deck that goes really wide, it might be pretty rough. Against Elves, I have no problem playing more than one. But against like Eldrazi, I understand how it can be good, but I also understand that like having too many of this card is. I've been successful with just one.
Right. I
haven't really tried more than one in Legacy, but I've never been to the point where like I straight up lose to this one creature that's a 5/5 Unless it's like Reality Smasher.
Right.
Then I'll be like, yeah, that's pretty annoying. But we could still beat a Reality Smasher. We don't absolutely need this card to be able to beat it. So
for me, like, I do have quite a bit of experience with Dismember. Like, if I have, like, 4 of them against Eldrazi, I'm super happy.
Sure.
Being able to trade 1 mana for essentially 2 mana creatures, I guess, or 3 mana creatures, because they're playing with all these soul lands, is a big tempo advantage. I'm not a big fan of this. It just feels very awkward against Grixis Delver. Like, Grixis Delver can just play out in so many different ways, and the life total is a bit precious because Deathrite Shaman turns out it can really pressure our life total. Just turn after turn after turn, we can just end up being, like, close to dead against a Deathrite Shaman if, like, I don't know, for example, our opponent flips Delver, attacks with it, I dismember the Delver. Like, there are also games where... maybe we'll see when we play it out, but I don't want to...
It's great against Burmag as well.
Yeah, it's good against those things, but I don't want to run it out into a daze.
Yeah.
Which also means I have to take, like, another 3 damage, because it's just super backbreaking to pay for life, target this Delver Secrets, it gets dazed, and I'm like, oh, that was awful.
Yeah, you have to play it safe, for sure. Yeah.
And then, but if you play it safe, then you take another 3 damage, so if essentially it's like, it's 1 life, 7 damage, destroy a creature. Like, is that worth it?
I'm seeing what you're seeing, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's actually a little bit awkward against Grixis Delver. I've enjoyed it a lot more against other Delver decks. But in other, like, I can have infinite number of these against elves.
So Young Pyromancer is another good target for this.
Yeah, Young Pyromancer, yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, it has had awkward moments. I guess I like it best against mid-range creature decks.
Sure.
But I can totally see I don't really want to have 4 of them right now.
Stoneforge decks, it's also good against.
It's fine. Like,
I bring it in.
because I hate that I don't have too many targets. Like, for example, if they play True Name Nemesis, I can't target that with this. It does give you some tempo, like if they play Batterskull, but the problem is they won't play Batterskull, but let's say they do, you can, like, dismember the Germ and you might have enough tempo. But I'm guessing you just want to dismember the Stoneforge Mystic.
Sort of Fire and Ice, it doesn't care about.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it can get through Sort of Fire and Ice.
Yeah, it comes up.
So Grafdigger's Cage.
Elves. Huge.
Great card. I almost always have 2 in my sideboard. Storm, Dredge. There's actually a lot of Dredge decks that they just see the Grafdigger's Cage and they just snap Resign against me.
Yeah.
The fastest.
Most importantly, Elves is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Green Sun Zenith, it stops, and Natural Order.
That's correct. I find that, like, Elves is obviously a bad matchup. Or what do you think of the Elves matchup?
After playing it with this deck, I feel like it's game 1 we're slightly favored.
Really?
No, I'm joking. It's like 45. Honestly, I think it's like 45, 40, around there. If we get Chalice and we have protection...
55? Oh, sorry. Oh, for us, 45.
It's like 40, 60, or 45, 55.
Okay.
In that range.
Depending on their build?
For game 1.
Yeah.
So if you're able to play early Chalice into protecting it with Force of Will, you have a good chance, because you just counter their Natural Order or their Green Sun Zenith that matters.
Yep.
And then just beat them with True Name. Games 2 and 3 get a little better. Umezawa's Jit is huge in that. If you get that on a unblockable type of creature, meaning one that they can't just block and bounce.
Yeah, because Elves just has a lot of good interaction.
Pithing Needle is okay against Wirewood Symbiote. It helps.
Oh, that's a good idea. You know what? I never thought about bringing Pithing Needle in against Elves, ever.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't always have it in my sideboard. But I totally...
Yeah, Pithing Needle is a very, very versatile card. It's the reason why I play it. It's good against, like, Stoneforge decks as well, because you can name Sword of Fire and Ice. You can name Dark Thespian stage, which is good.
Right.
Um, there's like Planeswalkers, like against Liliana. If you need to, Wasteland, which is kind of rare. The Pithing Needle is endless, basically.
Right.
Chandra, this is like a lot of random things that it works good. Bristlebrand,
So
other annoying lands. Yeah.
getting back, like, what are we? I know Chalice of the Void used to be like very, very good for me against elves, but then they started playing with Cavernous Souls,
Yeah.
making this actually just not as nearly as useful as it used to be.
You know what's funny is I actually side out Chalice sometimes, like just so I just forget about trying to win that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some times where I just like hedge, like I'll keep it in as a 2 of. So if it's good in that sense, like it's good in that matchup, but it's not like perfect, great.
Right.
I will sometimes just play 2 and just like board in the cards I need.
Well, I believe I just keep in Chalice of the Void anyway because the most of the games that I win are with Chalice of the Void. Actually, most of the games I win are with Chalice of the Void and Grafdigger's Cage.
Okay.
I probably win more games with Grafdigger's Cage than Chalice of the Void, to be honest. If they have no way of getting rid of Grafdigger's Cage, their board doesn't really do very much.
And it's super awkward with Chalice because if you play Chalice first,
yeah, I know
you're not playing a cage.
Yeah,
so it's so awkward in some cases, but like I don't know how to explain it, man. You need them both.
yeah. So like there are games where they play Cavernous Souls and then just makes Chalice look stupid. But in the games that they don't draw the Cavernous Souls, Chalice of the Void will have a very high impact on the game.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by sometimes I'll just take out like 2 of them if I'm on the draw.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, you know what?
Because on the draw, it's
I'll
like
play
pretty
2
useless.
of them. They're good in this matchup, but I still need Cage and all these other good cards. So.
Good stuff. Hey, did you see the new Lens card? That's coming out in Ixalan. There's a new Ixalan card coming out. It's a Pithing Needle for 2, but you get to look at their hand first before you name a card.
That's interesting.
You're not aware of this card?
Oh, I think I remember you made a video.
Oh yeah, I made a video about this. That's a very exciting card. How do you feel about this card?
I think I would need to test it out before, because playing, efficient Magic is way, the 1 mana difference could be winning the game in Legacy.
Right.
So I would have to test it out before I say, yes, it's better than this.
Cool. We went with Manriki Kassari, Umezawa's Jite, 1 of, totally fine. We can find it with Phantasmal Image when we copy Stoneforge Mystic deck, so having 1 is not a problem. It's legendary, so, you could always make that argument. It's never gonna be clunky.
You know what? It used to be a staple card as a 2 of in this deck. And it was good because against creature decks, which is, if they go too wide against us, it's a problem. It's really good against elves. It actually, I think Copter replaced it as the 2 of slot because truthfully, Umezawa's Jit is slow.
Oh yeah, it's slow, it's clunky, it costs 4 mana. It's a huge blowout if they kill the creature that it equips.
Oh yeah.
I've had highs and lows with this card, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it is, for me, it is like the Master of Waves of this deck. It is the only way to get back when I'm really behind.
Yeah.
There is nothing in this deck.
It's bonkers when it is good. It is bonkers.
But it's just the only thing that can get you back from like a really losing position. Like you're at 3 life. Drawing a million True Name Nemesis might not matter when they've got Bolt around the corner or something like that. Umezawa's the Jite gives you a little bit more. It gives you like a lot of protection. It just recovers your life total. You can start killing creatures that really matter on the board. Maybe you can race them.
Yeah, it's good against the creature decks. Very good.
Okay, I think that's about it. Actually, so like, I personally hate the one of philosophy. You got one
Okay.
ofs all over the damn place.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm all about so another thing to,
some of
talk
these look
about.
justified. Like I don't mind Manriki. I don't mind Umezawa's
Sure.
GT.
Sure. But understand this. Legacy, there are a lot of decks out there. But you also need to figure out what meta you're playing against, right?
Hmm.
There's there are ways to make this deck better against Delver, but it's not going to change the overall deck. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're not going to just turn into a straight control deck that just straight beats Delver.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? There's very few things we could do to change this deck to become, a Delver killer in the sideboard. So we can't really drift off too much with our sideboarding. All we can do is adjust our game plan against and make our matchups slightly better. But you don't want to turn into you don't want to turn our deck, siding out 8 cards for 8 cards just so that this matchup you're guaranteed to win, because it never happens, right?
No, but that's not really where I'm getting at.
Okay.
I don't want to put 8 cards in, but like I was saying, if Surgical Extraction is good, and we know there's a lot of lands decks out there, I'm gonna
Okay.
want to have maybe 2 Surgical Extractions over. I don't know what other deck card we're bringing in against lands or something.
So
But
the thing is, surgical extraction, for example, against lands, is not the greatest. It is good, but it's not going to change our matchup to become great.
well, then
In
good
my
question. What is a great card against lands? Because actually, I didn't feel like I heard a good argument for this card. Like, I think we have, especially against Manaless Dredge, I think that we just have a super good matchup against Manaless Dredge.
We do, we do, we do.
I
That
think,
our mat. No, you are right. It is like literal buy.
yeah,
I've punted against them and still won. Like that's how good the matchup.
I've taken the play and still won.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So, like, what else
Matchup.
about Surgical Extraction? Like, you also said,
So
Reanimator. Like, this is an awkward card against.
Getting a 2 for
Sorry, not
1,
Reanimator.
yeah,
Okay,
with Reanimator.
against Reanimator, I also think we have like a lot of game against them.
Yes, we do. We have a really good matchup against the black, red, white version of Reanimator and the blue black.
Yeah.
Surgical is good against that.
So it's Loam lands. I'm not like super sure about, but if you're saying
Yes.
like this is not that great against lands, then
Okay, so the reason why it's good against lands is when they flip over, when they dredge,
Mhm.
they're dark depths. So it's a good utility card. So if they go for it, and then you surgical their dark depths
Mhm.
from never existing, that's how you win the game. So they would have to put a 20/20, you have to bounce it, right?
right.
And that's how you win that
Why don't we
matchup.
just rely on cards like this?
That's why we're playing we're playing bounce cards as well. So
So why not play like an Echoing Truth?
because surgical is a flex card, it's good in multiple matchups, not just good in dark depths.
But like this is
It's good, but it's not.
this is where I would intervene. Well, you're also using this as just a one of, but how good is this card?
Echoing Truth?
Yeah.
It's fine. You don't I tried playing 2 for a long time. I think just having the extra Venser is huge because I want to be beating Show and Tell.
That's right.
If you have Venser and against Show and Tell, you are made.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Echoing Truth is not a good example here. What I'm saying is, if it's just so-so against lands, I'd rather just have another card that's also so-so against lands, but maybe higher impact against other decks.
So the thing is, surgical is not just so-so. It's game breaking if you have it against lands at the right time. I'm not saying it's
That makes it situational.
terrible. Yeah, it's a very situational card. So you don't want to have too many of them, but you also don't not want it in your deck. So in the thing I was trying to say is surgical is such a versatile card. It does more things than Graph Diggers but Grafdiggers also does more things than Surgical. They're just different decks that they're good against.
But
So
the difference is Grafdigger's Cage is super high impact. Like
yes,
it's
but it also
when it
falls
works.
victim to being a permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be dealt with. So like if someone plays Nikachu, in the Reanimator matchup, whereas Surgical just straight up removes that card. Like they work together, but they do different things.
Mm-hmm.
Is my point. So yes, we have like 3 ways to interact with our graveyard. One of them's a permanent, the other one's a spell. But this also helps in other matchups, and they help in different matchups, right? It's not just.
But I wanted to help in matchups we're like doing poor against. And I hear
They
the
are.
argument for elves. I'm sorry, not elves, lands. I love it. Well, maybe a question is, what are good cards against lands?
Back to basics.
And this is a card you don't want any more than 2 of.
Right.
Is that it? That's all we got against lands? Is Surgical Extraction and back to basics?
No, bounce. We have bounce. We have Pithing Needle.
So we could have a second Pithing Needle. But then it'll fall victim to being a permanent against them as well.
Right.
So
having diverse effects, it attacks them from different angles. You don't not want Surgical. That's the thing. Because so if we are able to stop them from killing us with a 20/20, you Surgical their Dark Depth so that they can no longer win the game.
Yep.
Is what it does.
No, I
because
hear it.
What happens is they just loam, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we answer it one time, they're going to keep doing it every turn.
Yep.
Every turn they get a 20/20. Surgical says no, you can no longer do this. That's the point.
All right.
You do have to play around their cycle land though, because they can dredge.
Right. They can re. Oh no, what does
but
that
that's
even matter?
loam. No, loam is sorcery, so you're good.
Loam is a sorcery.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that Dark Depth doesn't kill us. So, yeah, so this is like the only way to like straight up remove it from the game, and we no longer have to deal with it.
Okay, so
and
it's
that's how it works.
Situational but high impact.
Yes.
Is that if we take Dark Depths, they have no other way to win, or is it just punishing fire?
It would be punishing fire, and if they board into Tireless Tracker.
Right. Yeah, so they've got like really clunky ways of trying to finish us off.
Yeah.
Well, punishing fire can be a beating if we don't have the board set up for it.
Yeah, if you really necessarily need it. So in our Dark Depths matchup or lands matchup, game 1, the way we normally win is have Vial on 2 and hope they fuck up.
Sure.
Excuse me. Yeah. So so they attack with the 20/20. We Vial in the image, copy their 20/20, block the 20/20, attack them back.
Sure.
Hopefully they don't have a punishing fire to target our image, or we just Merfolk them with True Name.
We're gonna Merfolk them.
The very rare occasion we can Chalice on 1, Chalice on 2. Hope they don't naturally get the 20/20.
Right.
So those are ways we can get them.
How good is Wasteland in the lands matchup?
So TuxDev was telling me that it's he was telling me that he had his opponent mess up, and that's how he won with Wasteland.
That doesn't sound good. I don't like that. I don't like these plans. I like objectively good plans.
Yeah, he was telling me a play that he basically top decked Wasteland after his opponent didn't main phase the 20/20. But then I told him but then you just play like Phantasmal Image, copy the 20/20. So I don't know if he really made a mistake.
Right.
Because you probably have more images than Wasteland,
right.
is so he top decked Wasteland, and that just basically wrecked him because his opponent couldn't make the 20/20 at that point because he can respond. So that's how Wasteland affects that matchup mostly.
All right, I think we went through it enough. Oh, it looks like a beautiful deck. So I think we're going to do that for our deck tech. We're going to thank John Kassari for doing this with us, and he's going to help guide us through the league that we're going to play. Go check him out on his what's your Twitch channel?
My Twitch channel is E with 7 H's.
7? Wow, can you make that any more confusing? Because you don't have a 7H.
H's, yeah.
your username on Magic the Gathering Online doesn't use 7 H's.
It's only 3 H's.
Oh man, you got to keep track of the H's.
Dude, it wasn't available.
Do you know what? Yeah. What? Well, yeah, we got to make do with what we got. So we're gonna thank A. Go check him out on Twitch. We're gonna thank all my patrons supporting me on Patreon, and we're also gonna thank our sponsor, themanabase.com. This has been Nikachu with John Kassari talking about Merfolk in Legacy.